Hello, and welcome back to the Ask the Color Expert podcast. Today's special guest is from across the pond. It's the one and only James Atkinson. If you are a YouTube fan and you are a hairdresser, you should know who he is by now. And if you don't, you need to know. That is how I found him and reached out to him, and he was very gracious in coming on the podcast. So it was a little tricky to get our time together because we're in two different time zones. So he stayed up late for us, and I'm happy to have you here today. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on your podcast. It's really great.
It's my pleasure. I love your curls. I love getting to see you. And, you know, when I do the podcast, I love to do video and audio. And most people, women freak out. They're like, I didn't wear any makeup. I thought this was a podcast. But yeah. I think that seeing both of us, you know, sometimes is more fun than just listening. But, Absolutely. You know, people have their preference, whether they want to listen or watch. So thank you for being open to both.
Certainly.
So before I hit record, I was chatting with you about how impressed I am with your numbers on YouTube, with how real you are on YouTube. And I relate it to you on so many levels because I find our style of teaching to be very similar, which is very rare. You know, usually people have a certain style and you watch them and you cringe at some of the things that they say. For you, most times I'm like, yes, finally somebody is telling the truth and being real about that. One of the episodes that really got my attention was you were showing another, you know, very popular YouTuber that teaches hair color that I'm sorry to say, I cringe at every single word and every single tip that she gives. And I'm amazed at how popular she is. I'm not going to name names or throw anybody under the bus, but I love that you went right out and did you had it playing. You're like, okay, see this? No, I don't think so. And I was so envious at you having the guts to do that because I'm not a play it safe kind of person in life, but with this online education, I tend to hold back on things that are controversial because people can be so mean and just really come at you. So I loved that you dared to do that because some things needed to be said about the misinformation. Have you ever gotten any pushback from doing something like that? I was curious about that.
Not really. No, not really. No one that I've ever sort of commented on their video, and you know, I try and be really pragmatic and straightforward and honest about what I see. I'm not I don't dramatize it for anybody that's never seen one of those episodes. Right. It's not a dramatic like, oh my god, you know, it's just like, hold on a minute, like this is not accurate, you know, this is not accurate because of X, Y, and Z. You know, so I've had a few people, yes, you know, kind of say I love them, and you know, you know, great, you know, wonderful. I just kill them with kindness. You know, I just say to them, look, I'm sure you do love them. I don't not like them. It's not personal. Right. It's just to say that that advice, that piece of information isn't necessarily true to what the manufacturer recommended or what's good for health and safety or what you were taught in college, or so it's not a personal thing. You see, I think for me, and it's actually the third time this week I've talked about this topic specifically, is critique is massively important. And we don't differentiate critique and criticism very well in our industry. I'm not criticizing. I am critiquing, reviewing, pointing out the differences. And so if they would want to cut, they don't really leave anybody much room to come at me because I'm not being horrible or I'm not being snide, just saying it as it is. There it is. Take it as you want it. And so that's it's not, you know, I think it's super important for me that we start to acknowledge critique in this industry. If you was a chef and I was a chef, we'd make some food. Somebody with no qualifications in cooking would probably turn up to our restaurant and write a blog about it and make or break us. or, write in the Guardian, which is one of the British newspapers, a column in the, and that restaurant would go that way or that way overnight. And as hairdressers, we do hair. Nobody says anything. Nobody critiques it. Nobody writes a column about it. Nobody says this was good, bad, or indifferent. We get a bad review on YouTube, on Google, and we, I've seen hairdressers attacking the person who wrote that review, saying that they don't know what they're talking about. No, they don't know what they're talking about, but they have a mirror, and they know what they look like. And I did someone's hair yesterday. They weren't that thrilled with it, so we sat down and we just totally redid it. Like, we had a massive consultation at the start, very difficult consultation. She just wasn't thrilled with the end result. So I was like, okay, I really like your hair. Actually, from a technical standpoint, I've done a really good job, but you don't like it, and that's okay, because your hair. Mm-hmm. So let's just fix it, change it to the specifications of which you prefer, because it's not mine. So I take the emotion out of it. I don't feel like they're attacking me, because I know I did a good job. It looked like a great color. It just wasn't the great color that she wanted. It was, not as, she just felt it was it could be a bit livelier, a bit blonder, a bit this, a bit that. Okay, cool. Let's change it. So I think that's one of the big problems for me, is that, and you're not the first person to say to me, wow, I can't believe you did that. I can't believe that you, critiqued, reviewed, reacted to the hairdresser in the industry, the hairdressers, because you have those people who are well known that react to videos, but they're just reacting to someone in their bathroom, or, somebody that's attempting to change their hair color. They're not actually giving value or conjecture to a professional who's potentially misinforming the industry. So, or misinforming clients, even worse. Olaplex is a classic. People trying to say Olaplex is this kind of miracle fixing, and it's I know scientifically how Olaplex works. I know exactly what it does chemically. And so, for me, when I'm sitting there listening to people say, I'm like, it's like down the chalkboard to me, I'm just like, what is this person saying? And I got fed up of listening to it. That's the reality. I just got fed up of listening to it. And one day I was sort of sitting there and I thought, you know what? Just gonna say something. I'm going to do it really pragmatically. I'm going to do it as if I was coaching them to be a better hairdresser. Mm-hmm. And but here's the thing, when people come back at me, when people say nasty things, because they do, I don't care, because I'll do one of two things. I'll ignore them, or I'll say, sorry, you're having a terrible time, bad day, whatever it is that's made you feel it's necessary to come on here and, say that to me. Hope you're okay. And if you're not okay, then I'm happy to talk. If you want to contact me, send me an email and I'll call you, or whatever it takes, and let's talk about it. And I have talked to people. I have phoned them up and had conversations with people all over the world about, something they've not been happy about. And it's amazing, when you start talking to them, they're completely different people.
Exactly.
And so, they are just in that moment, they've just lost it. But, for me personally, I actually just don't, it doesn't faze me, because I like, like when the client says, I don't like my color, I don't take it to heart. I don't think to myself, that's about me, and I think that's one of the things that when people take these things personally, it's they very much take it as an attack on them, and I think it's difficult not to take as an attack on yourself. I understand that, but I feel like I've grown as a person enough to be able to take criticism, critique, even abuse on the chin, and either respond politely with kindness, or just, haven't got the energy today, and just not think about it ever again.
Yeah. I mean, when you get to the level you are and you have that many people following you, you're going to have, your trolls and your people that just want
Yep.
to be mean just for being mean's sake. And part of getting a little bit older for me was being able to discern when something was really about them and not about me. And to your point, knowing, yeah, maybe I didn't say that right. Like if someone calls me out and I can see it, I'm like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have said that or something like that. So being more diplomatic. But no, I thought that the way that you did that critique was very professionally done. And I didn't think that it was a bad thing. I thought it was gutsy as far as what other people think, but you weren't being a mean girl in any way and saying, oh, look at her hair, look at her neck. Like it was like, no, this is not the truth. And you have to be careful when you put yourself in an educator position. Sometimes I talk so fast, as you can see. And one time I was talking about something and I said, it's alkaline, thinking that I was saying acidic and said alkaline and didn't even realize it. And I got like, 20 different messages. Well, I talked to a chemist and he said, and I was like, oh my gosh, you're absolutely right. I did not even realize I said that. So being able to admit when you say something wrong and knowing the responsibility of educating people is important. But, speaking of cringing, you said something really valid with, take the criticism and either do something better or know that it's about them and not about you. But there's this whole trend right now with everyone so eager to fire their clients who tell them that they're not perfect. And I look at it as somebody who's been doing this 35 years and I think, wow, such a generation gap with that. I'm all about boundaries and protecting yourself and not being abused, but to fire every client that tells you that you're not perfect is absolutely ridiculous. Like it's gone too far to the other extreme.
I do sack clients, I do fire clients, but not because I'm not perfect in any way, shape, or form. I can perfectly accept I'm not perfect. I do it because I want to enjoy going to work. I do it because it's my choice whose hair I do. I've taken back the control of who I want to spend my days with. And it's not because I wouldn't, if somebody didn't like that girl yesterday, she didn't like what I did. I fixed it, I changed it. I will happily do her hair again. Any day of the week, anytime she likes. But what I won't accept is that when I tell somebody they can't do something with their hair for whatever reason, that they keep telling me that they can do that because they saw it on YouTube.
That's another problem.
Or they saw on Instagram this person who had £15,000 worth of hair services, went from black to platinum in, 7 pictures with, no real information behind it all. Tell me that why can't, they did it, why can't I have it? And so I'm pragmatic about it, I'm pragmatic about it like I would be pragmatic about, reviewing somebody else's video. I just say, look, unfortunately, I'm confident enough to say that I know exactly what I'm doing. And you telling me what is possible with your hair, this isn't a relationship that we're going to be able to sustain. I can happily recommend you to friends, colleagues, but for me, I'm not going to take this one on. That would be a consultation type of, moment. I always do prior consultations with everybody. And then, with a client that I've done a few times where we've attempted to take on a color scenario that's complex, difficult, and I know that I've made, and I will always make, all of the most clear guidelines to when and where we think we might get to our end result. It's, and then obviously sometimes you just don't get there. You just don't make it there in 3 goes. You don't make it there in 4 goes. You've tried your damnedest, you've put your heart and soul into it. And at that point, if the client is, and again, this is obviously down to them, they're rearing up at you because you're not there when you said you'd be there. I know I've put every ounce of everything I've got, because I don't do clients in between my clients. I just do the client that I've got in the room at the time, you know, and whether they're there for me
So,
5,
yeah.
6 hours, I put everything into that. You know, everything that I've got in that time goes into that hair, you know. And then, you know, they come at me, you know, saying, well, you know, we're 3 goes in and it's going to cost me another, you know, 200 quid or whatever to have another go. You know, I will have caveated it with, you know, 3 goes, but we don't know, because we're taking on something that's not, you know, that could go sideways in the first effort, or the first effort could go well and the second effort doesn't go any further or not much further, you know. And then I'll have that conversation with them, you know, and I'll say, look, unfortunately, if you're not going to listen to me telling you the journey has moved, we can't stay in a relationship as, you know, hairdresser and client, because our communication has broken down. You are now hanging on to something that I said 6 months ago, and the ballpark's changed and things have shifted. So I'm not into this thing where, you know, it's just one, you know, client with a bleed here, you know, and something that's their fault, or, you know, whatever. Like you said, not perfect. I'm not perfect by any stretch of anyone's imagination, but I feel like I'm, one, not here to service every person in my neighborhood, and I'm, two, also don't feel like I need to look at my column and go, oh no, you know, and dread the day, because I just, you know that client's going to give me the runaround. So for me, and don't get me wrong, this is a sort of brand new thing in the last, since 2019. I had a terrible time in 2019 with new clients. I started to get good traction on Instagram. I started to get some, you know, movement on Instagram locally and recommendations for being able to, you know, be a wizard with grey, actually, was the big thing. You know, really good. You want grey hair, go and see James, you know, and the grey was blowing up at the time. And as you know, grey is a nightmare. And I was less experienced in, just less experienced. I mean, I know it wasn't that long ago, but, you know, like, you know, you grow, you change, you evolve. And I was just taking on everything, because I was sort of like floating on air. Like, everybody wanted to see me for these grey colors, and I was hitting them out of the park. And then I was taking on more and more difficult clients, and I was taking on more and more people that weren't listening to the upkeep journey of grey. You know, that it's going to last about 2 seconds, and you're going to be back in the chair.
That it's natural grey, they're done forever.
That's it. No. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, bye, you know. And you know, you'll be back in the chair 2 weeks later for a toner and a rejig and a, you know, and I got a whole host of people that were deaf, you know, that didn't matter what I said to them in the consultation, they hadn't listened, they weren't listening. And so through 2019, I sporadically just went through, you know, and said, I said this in the consultation, sat down with them, you know, face to face. I said this in the consultation. I know I did, because I know what I would say in a consultation to somebody. And you don't want to pay for your toner again. So I'm doing work for free. You don't want to pay for the toner. It's actually costing the business money. You're not happy because you're back in again. Sorry, we can't continue. You know, and to be honest, personally, if you asked me 5 years ago if I'd have ever done that, I'd have said no. But now I feel like that this is an industry that is extremely touchy-feely and personal. And, you know, if I had a dentist, for instance, that said, I can't do what you want with your teeth, James, I wouldn't take that personally. It wouldn't feel like it was an attack on me. I'd be like, oh, thanks, who can?
Right.
You know? if I could take my car to a garage and say, James, sorry, you can't have that, you know, engine put in your car. But so-and-so down the road, or I can't do that, or I don't want to do that, but I know someone who can, then great. So I'm up for that. And I know that I do see on Facebook some absolutely heinous behavior from certain people. I don't know the names, but I'm outraged at some of the things that they say to clients, you know. But I do believe that we should have the right to say no. Whether that's no to an existing client or no to a new client, because people don't always listen. And the right to say no should be written in law globally. Because people feel like they can't say no to things, don't they? I mean, you think across the world in history, the amount of people that said yes to things that were heinous crimes, you know, the people that, well, you know, World War II, for instance, you know, the Germans, half of those soldiers didn't want to be there, you know, but they had no choice. They said yes, even though they wanted to say no, you know, and I think no should be a much more well accepted word.
I always say it's only 2 letters. It's really not that hard to say, you know, when people make excuses and again, that comes with maturity, it comes with confidence, that all comes down the road. But there's this like tipping point where it's you know, oh, I fired that person that was mean to me. Now I want to fire everyone that's ever mean to me. Like there's going to be days when clients are difficult. I think that the industry has tipped so far the other way with, I think veterans like me can learn from the younger generation where they don't want to work 10-hour days, 5 hours, I mean, 5 days a week, no time off, no lunch, no bathroom breaks, all that. Like we work like crazy people. But they're so far to the other end where if they do 4 clients, they're exhausted. And I'm like, oh my gosh, 4 clients was a half a day for me, you know? So there has to be a happy medium. I think it's too far to both extremes. And I blame Khloe Kardashian for the whole thing that you had to deal with your client when all of a sudden she was blonde and she was a Kardashian, but Tracy Cunningham put that photo out that everybody was able to share of her journey. And she put the dates of how many visits and how many years. And I thought that was so cool that she did that because she knew, you know, we're all stuck with that picture in our chair of like, I want this today. And she was, you know, cool to share that it wasn't in a day for her either.
No, totally. Yeah, no, I'm totally with you there. And I think, it has gone a long way the other way. I get that, you know, in a lot of cases, but, you know, like all these things, they find their happy medium, don't they? You know, I still know loads of people that wouldn't even dream of saying no. So, yeah, it's a tricky one. It's like all new things, isn't it? You know, there's always too much of some things sometimes, and it takes a while. And you know what? It's only when they only find the happy medium when enough people accept it. Does that make sense? You know, because at the moment, it's at 2 polarizing ends because you haven't got enough people to say, teach it, if you like, say, this is how you do it. This is how you do this. Do you want a second client? This is how you do it. But you do it like this, like a professional. You do it for this reason, not because they told you that your balayage was a bit off key. Right. Fix it. Fix your balayage. Your balayage was rubbish.
Right. You know. Well, the same with pricing. You know, everybody has a strong opinion on how to raise prices, when to raise prices, if you should raise prices. And you see these arguments back and forth, and there's no one size fits all, just like hair color. People will die for their brand of hair color, swearing that it's the only thing that covers gray. And I know you're the type of educator like I am that says, if you understand hair color, you can cook in anybody's kitchen. I can go in any salon anywhere in the world, pick up a tube of color and do color because I understand how hair color works.
I mean, I use loads of brands of hair color. I get sent hair color. I buy hair color. And you know, if my clients are watching this, then you'll let you into a secret, guys. You know, I very rarely use the same brand on you twice because I've been sent something, or when I had you know, I worked for Redkin. You know, they would send me white tubes, and you know, and I would be using you know, products that were just about to be licensed as, you know, as retail products to the mass population on clients to see what they really did. You know, I'm a bit of a hair hoarder. I don't know if I've got, usually have loads of hair around, but I don't have any at the moment. But, oh, here we go. Look, I knew if I didn't look very far, I'd find some. You know, I take these cuttings from, for anyone that's listening, this is a great big wodge of someone's hair. I take these hair cuttings when I do a restyle. You know, if I'm going to test a color, I pull off a bit that's, you know, about, you know, 75 hairs. I bleach it up and then I color over it with whatever the, you know, to understand what the undertone of that color is really. And then I'll put a bit over some brown and see what that looks like. And then I'll try it on a client the next time I feel like it's suitable. You know, and I'm totally with you there. You know, if you understand the color, there's one thing a brand can't own, guys, and this is really important to recognize, is they can't own color. Color is in God-given nature's way. You know, there's no brand that owns the color.
Right.
What they use to make up their colors, well, it's red, yellow, and blue. How much of that they use in each color is variable. But it's all red, yellow, and blue. Whatever you say about it, it's red, yellow, and blue. Every tube is red, yellow, and blue. You know, some are more alkaline, some are less alkaline, but effectively they're all red, yellow, and blue. So, you know, I think the more you know, knowledge is power always, and the more you know, the less you need to know about the brand's, you know, wonderful, you know, arginine complex, you know, whatever that covers gray, their, you know, double penetration pigment. You know, all of these buzzwords that the brands like to use to make you feel like you're really getting something new.
What drives me crazy is the dump. I used 19, 9V, 10GI, 9GI, 8W. I'm like, whoa. And people get mad when you call them out. Like some people that are super popular on Instagram, they're like sharing this formula all around fit. This is the best formula. And I'm like, if you break down what's in every one of those formulas and put it on a piece of paper, you would commit yourself for being so crazy. You know what I mean? Yeah. But when you speak about it and you call it out, people are like, what do you mean? I need all those things.
Totally. My good friend Adam calls that throwing the kitchen sink at it. Mm-hmm. You've got a bit of everything and it can't go wrong.
Well, it basically becomes a neutral. I always say, you just made a really expensive neutral. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Because everything's canceling everything else and it becomes a big pile of mud.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. Yeah, I'm totally with you. I mean, I've seen, I hate formula-led education anyway. I really hate it. You know, people buying into people's education programs and Patreons and stuff like that for formulas. Guys, please just no, don't do that. Go and find an educator that will teach you how color works, what colors are made of, and learn like that. Do not take formula-led education and run with it, because it just doesn't work. You know, you're waiting for that golden moment when that right client walks in the door and you get, you know, the right scenario. And it's a bit like when I learned to cut hair. I went to loads of cutting classes where they were showing me one haircut and I never used it because the right person never came along. You know, it wasn't until I learned a structured way of cutting hair that worked for everybody that I could tweak and mold and manipulate to make something more creative or interesting for each client. You know, it's a different mentality. So please, guys, please don't, if you're a member of a formula-led education academy, find somebody that's just going to teach you from the ground up. You know, you'll thank me in the end. You know, I'm telling you now.
How long have you been in the industry and what was your training? Did you do the apprenticeship route with the 3 years?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I've been in the industry 17 years. I did an MVQ that was an apprenticeship. So I worked in a salon. But I got on really well with the college. I played golf for England before. I was a hairdresser. And so I knew the value of hard work because I'd spent thousands of hours hitting golf balls. And so I'd got on really well with the college, and the guy who kind of got me into hairdressing was the president of the Hairdressers Guild in the UK. And he also trained a guy called Gianni Scamacci, who's the only hairdresser David Bailey, who's a very, very famous photographer, will work with. And there's some kind, if you don't know Gianni's work, then I highly recommend.
I know the name. Yeah, I know the name. It sounds very
yeah. Anybody that's listening to this never heard of him, go to YouTube. Go to Instagram and put Gianni Scamacci in, hairdresser. I think that's Gianni Scamacci, but he's absolutely out of this world. He's got a sense of style about him that is unmatched by anybody. And yeah, so I got on really well with the college because I had this great affiliation with Keith, the guy that got me into hairdressing in the first place. And I went to the night classes. I stayed late afterwards. I went to the class next door, and so I actually got my 3-year course done in 11 months.
Wow.
Because I was when I was at the college, like I would turn up at 9 in the morning and leave as the doors closed, and I would turn up to other night classes, and, the teachers were like, we didn't know whether I was going to be there or not, but they just accepted that, there was this guy that was just driven beyond belief, and that he was just going to turn up whenever in whoever's class, and I wasn't going to disrupt it. I was just going to sit there and listen and write down notes and join in and sign off things and go home.
That's awesome.
And they were really acceptant of that. And I went through that, and then I left and moved to London. I worked for one company for a very short amount of time, and then I went to Vidal Sassoon for a bit, and then I left Vidal Sassoon, and then I worked for Rush. And Rush is a chain over here, and I learned a lot from those guys. They just headhunted a load of Sassoon trainers, and then I learned to color about 5.5 years into my career. I got trained by a guy called Chris Williams, who's 2 or 3 times British Colorist of the Year now. And I'd never understood color at all. I didn't get it one little bit until I met Chris. And he just had a way of explaining it that to me made absolute perfect sense. He explained it like science. He explained it like maths. He explained it like, and I know for a lot of hairdressers, they'd be reeling at that idea. But for me, it was like, it's not a guessing game. You don't just put a color on and hope for the best. You don't ask the girls and say, what have you used previously that might work? There is a way of coloring hair that is foolproof. And so, of course, the minute he started training me, I was all ears, and I was like his pest, 6 days a week, right on his tail, listening, watching, going to demos with him. I was, there. And, I had a fantastic journey with him, and I ended that journey a bit too prematurely. I apologized to him previously about that, but, and I was dead lucky. And then I went to work for Redken, but I've never stopped training. I will never stop training. I have till the day I die, I will always be learning, whether it be about psychology or communication, hair, science. There's so many things I just don't know. And I know I don't know them. They're out there, and one day it will be the right time for me to know, but in the meantime, as it keeps coming my way, I'll keep taking it on board. And I think, my early training as a golfer paved the way. I used to practice till my hands bled. All the skin would come off the pads of my hands, and I had to tape my hands up the next day. But I'd be back there, and in the rain, the snow, I would be hitting golf balls. And that set the precedent for the rest of my life. And I realized that if you applied yourself, if you really, really applied yourself, not just I'm a good student, you know, I turned up this week, you know, I did my exams. You know, if you really, really apply yourself, you know, then everything's fruitful. Everything's more fruitful. Your career, your life, you know, the life you lead, you know. And so I've applied that to every step of my career, with exception to a small blip in my mid-20s. But it's because I applied myself to something else. I really got into long distance endurance sport and became very good at it competitively, and wanted to see if I could pursue that as a kind of as a new career, I guess, a different career for a while. But I fractured my foot subsequently, and I had a massive epiphany in the shower that, you know, I was worrying about my foot ruining my career as an endurance athlete, but actually I had a career that I loved, and it didn't matter. You know, I had the best backup in the world. You know, I was a hairdresser. And it was really at that point that I, how old was I? Oh, when was this? So this was 5 years ago. And it was 5 years, it was from that very moment in time that I just put the hammer down. And that's how we got to here we are today.
And you mentioned two great mentors, and I believe that that is what's missing right now in our industry, is that people are coming out so eager out of school and they're going right into renting a suite by themselves. And I think, oh my gosh, my career would have been a disaster had I gone that route and not had strong mentors and teachers and people to watch and see how they talked to the client, how they did the consultation, how they handled when they didn't hear what they wanted to hear from the client. I can't even imagine trying to navigate that without a strong mentor. So
I've been so lucky in my career, you know, with the mentors that I've had just the best mentors. In the UK, haven't quite got to the point yet where people want to leave college with their qualifications and open their own little business, but it's going that way for sure. And, you know, I mentor a lot of people at the moment, you know, in small ways and big ways, you know, and I have done for a while. And, you know, it's just paying it forward in my eyes, you know. But mentorship for me has changed my life. I have had, you know, great teaching mentor, Chris Moody. I've had great cutting mentors, Dove Palmer, Andy Heisman, Sid Satang, you know, coloring mentors, Chris Williams, Adam Brown, you know, just to name a few. But proper mentorship, proper, you know, I did celebrity, you know, hairstyling, Jimo Salaka. You know, these people changed the way that I perceive the world, the way that I perceived my own value, my own worth. These people changed my life. And I've gone out of my way to, I mean, Lee Stafford, you know, wrote an article or had an article written about him in a newspaper just as I became a hairdresser from golf, that convinced my dad that it was okay that I was a hairdresser. You know, so these people have all shaped my career, you know, and I've subsequently thanked them all for what they've done for me. They did. And a great quote that Chris, my teaching mentor, said to me once: the impact you have, James, is not always seen. And truer than ever with YouTube and stuff like that, you know. But you know, that for me, you know, I now get to be a microcosmic, you know, small mentor to, you know, thousands of people with YouTube. But I also get to still have those fantastic real life mentoring opportunities. And I don't know many industries that are as, you know, mentor driven, or the opportunity to have fantastic mentors as we have in this industry. And it would be a massive shame, you know, that if that died out like it has in so many industries. Because like you say, people leave college and go straight into a suite and they don't get the opportunity to not get paid a lot, but learn a lot.
Well, I, for one, am happy that you're paying it forward, and I feel blessed that I'm able to pay it forward as well. The collection of all the things that you and I have learned from other people that we were blessed to have work for us
Yeah,
behind the chair. It would be
totally.
selfish not to pass it on to other people. It's just
No,
getting them to be open to the information and to take it all in and try it on is always a challenge, but that's what keeps us on our toes, right?
absolutely. My life legacy is to leave behind, my life ambition, sorry, is to leave behind a legacy of a tangible way of people engaging with education that is affordable and that will ultimately benefit my industry, the industry that I love, for a long period of time. You know, what I leave behind will always become outdated, in air commas. But, you know, if I can impact enough people whilst it's still relevant, I will feel like, you know, my meaning of life, you know, which is a big, you know, big question to ask. What's your meaning of life? Well, I feel like the meaning of life is to teach it, pass it on, you know, not teach the meaning of life, but be passionate about something and pass on information. Don't retain information, and don't ever feel like you haven't got anything to share. Anybody that's listening to this going, I don't know what I would teach. You know, if you're better at tiddlywinks than the person next to you, make them better at tiddlywinks. You know, don't ever just think you don't have anything to share, because you're always better at something than somebody, or you know
Somebody.
something that somebody doesn't know. And it's always valuable to just pass the information on. And you can say it like you don't even have to lecture somebody, you know, you can say it like a statement. You know, I was talking about to some of the colleagues that I work with today. I was talking about communism and capitalism, and how the relationship of the two are akin. And they were all eating their lunch, and I was just telling it like a sort of statement, you know, and how much of that went in, it doesn't matter. But if somebody next time someone talks about capitalism and communism, they might know something, you know. And I think you know, that's just my nature. My nature is I want people to know things, you know. So yeah, I'm totally with you. I'm profoundly blessed to be able to distribute information, and people take it on and, you know, act on it.
So on that note, tell people how they can find you and your education programs. I'm sure they know how to find you on YouTube, but where can they find your
Well, I'm at the
courses and
Life of
classes?
Hair everywhere. I'm at the Life of Hair I'm at the Life of Hair on Instagram. I'm at the Life of Hair on YouTube. Linked in the description of my YouTube, I have a Patreon, but that's actually something, if you want to get involved, you should do that now, because I'm going to change all that, and anybody that's a Patreon, when I change all that, will have a price freeze for life. So whatever you pay your $10 as a Patreon, and you price freeze for life. Price won't go up, because we're going to change the whole platform. We've got some exciting things happening with all that. Part of creating that, you know, life ambition of mine is this new platform. So but, you know, if you want to say hi and you want to send me a DM, and, you know, you want me to, you know, talk to you on the phone or whatever, you know, you can send me an email to hairjamesa@icloud.com. And I would be more than happy to chat, send emails, whatever you want. I'm an open book. I've got time for everybody.
That's amazing. You're amazing. Thank you so much for doing
You're
this
welcome.
interview.
Thank
I
you.
loved seeing you and meeting you, and I have mad respect
Ditto.
for you and everything that you do. And this has been an absolute pleasure. So
Thank you very
everyone
much. It's
check
been
out
a great pleasure to
James.
talk to you too. Keep going. It's been
Awesome.
fantastic.
Thank you. So thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.